We kept December school really simple this year, which really helped us to be able to enjoy a lot of activities throughout the month. I'm definitely going to be remembering this for next year. Hi everyone, welcome to our homeschool table. My name is Jerilyn. I'm a mom of 3 kids, ages 10, 3, and 1. This is our 6th year homeschooling. Today I'm going to be sharing all about how our curriculum went for the month of December, along with some of the activities that we did and what my preschooler was up to as well. If you saw my goals video for 2025, you might remember that I have a book goal of reading 25 books this year. So stick around until the end and I will share with you what I'm reading for January. So as I was getting ready to talk about all of the activities that we did in December, I started writing things down so that I could kind of just remember all the things that we did. And it was actually a lot more than I even had realized at the time. I think that the reason that it didn't feel super overwhelming or chaotic is because we really cut back on the amount of school that we were doing in the month of December. And so it left room for me to kind of relax during the week when we had lots of plans on the weekends. So we just did lots of different things. We went to our Christmas tree lighting here in town. We had a few Christmas programs that we went to, choir or dancing. We went with some friends to a living nativity. That was really fun. We looked at lots of Christmas lights. Probably 3 or 4 different times we went Christmas light looking, which is something that our family really enjoys doing. We baked cookies. We went to our music class that we go to once a month, and that was a big Christmas theme that was really fun. And all of the kids really enjoyed being there. We hosted Christmas here at our house, which just includes having both my mom and my husband's mom over for breakfast in the morning with stockings and presents, and then we have dinner in the evening a little bit later on. And so that was really nice. And it was really rainy that day, but my husband and I even were able to go out on a walk together, which was cool, even though it was pouring rain. And then we've just kind of laid low since Christmas. We went to some friend's house for dinner, and we went to another friend's house for dinner on Christmas Eve and stayed up and watched The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which I had actually never seen. So that was really fun. So that's kind of how our December went as far as activities goes. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our December homeschool and curriculum that we were doing. So if you have watched any of my videos in the past, I usually go through every single subject and everything we use. And this month I'm going to do a little bit less of that because we actually did less of it. But my daughter still worked on a little bit of math. I think we did only one new lesson in December as far as Math UC goes. But then we did lots of practice, and I printed her out some practice pages using the worksheet generator on the Math UC website. So that is really nice to have, especially for breaks and things when you don't necessarily want to do something new, but you still want to have your child practicing. I really love the worksheet generator that Math UC has on their website. You do have to have purchased a digital pack on their website to be able to have access to that. So we did some math. My daughter had lots of her regular independent work. So things like her nature reader. I did implement having her do a little bit of a like fact about whatever she's reading that day. I made a little sheet for her that I printed out that's double-sided. If you're interested in seeing that, let me know. I can always do a video about just that kind of reading response type of sheet. And then for language arts, she was still working on copy work. And this month in December, I made her some special Christmas copy work where I took the hymns that we were going to be kind of focusing on in December, and I created copy work passages for her to write out some of the lyrics to those songs. And so she really enjoyed that. She did a really nice job with it. We also focused our picture study for the month on a couple of different Christmas things, which I showed in my prep for December video. So if you're interested in seeing what we did for that to get ideas for next year, I will link that video down below in the description box and up here in the iCards so that you can see kind of how I did that. There was one picture that we have that was from Tintoretto, and he was actually an artist that we were studying in the fall, so that worked out really well. And then there were a couple that I had on my computer that I got off of Ambleside Online. We also practiced lots of hymns, and our church that we go to doesn't really do many hymns at all, which I really like hymns, so I kind of miss it, but I do want to have those in our homeschool so that my kids can still learn some of those just more traditional songs. And so we practiced O Little Town of Bethlehem and Joy to the World, We Three Kings. We did the Happy Hymnody Hymn of the Month, which was Once in Royal David City. I had actually never heard that song, so I appreciated learning a new hymn as well. That is one nice part about homeschooling, is that we always get to learn right alongside of our kids. Usually in the mornings for our morning time, we do our sunlight Bible reading and scripture memory and things like that. So instead of doing that in the month of December, we read through Jotham's Journey, and the way that this is laid out just has a few pages every day that you read. And then in the last week before Christmas, you are supposed to read it just a little bit at a time, getting up to Christmas Day. And so we did those readings a couple times a week. So normally I would read like 2 or 3 on one day and then wait a couple days and read a few more. And my daughter really likes to not be cliffhanged, as she says. And so she appreciates being able to hear a few different parts of the story at one time and then maybe wait a couple days, because we get busy and we don't usually stay on track with those types of things. So we actually finished the whole book. I think it was on the 27th of December, but it was still really good. And we really enjoyed that story. I will definitely be getting another Advent storybook like that. This author has a few different Advent storybooks, and then he also has an Easter storybook. And so I do plan to get a different one for next year, and then maybe even do the Easter one this coming Easter season. As far as our other homeschool curriculum, like I said, we took a little break from our Sunlight curriculum. So we had finished about halfway through week 12 before Thanksgiving, and then we just kind of stopped doing our Sunlight at all for the month of December, which is part of why it seemed so simple and relaxed, because there wasn't a lot of extra read alouds and things like that aside from the Jotham's Journey book that we were going through. And so it just left it very kind of relaxed and chill for the month of December. Even though we weren't doing our full Sunlight curriculum, I did have my daughter do a read aloud on an audiobook that would have been scheduled basically right now in January. And so she went through that book and she liked it so much. I think she finished it in 2 or 3 days. It was called Little Britches. I do have to say that I enjoy read alouds, but I often don't read fast enough for my daughter because she really wants the story to, move quickly, like as if she were reading it. And I am not very good at that. So that is part of why I really enjoy getting audiobooks for her to listen to. And I prefer to get them on CD for her, which a lot more of them are available at our library than on the Libby app that our library uses. So that's actually kind of handy, because then she doesn't have to borrow my phone or the computer or anything like that. She can just pop her CD into her CD player during quiet time and listen to her audiobooks that way. So I definitely recommend getting some of the books on audio if you can. I do have all of them over on my shelf in paper form. So if she wanted to, she could just read it instead, which she also really enjoys. But it's kind of nice to be able to listen to something once in a while. So she enjoys the audiobooks. We didn't do very much science in the month of December. We did that on purpose just to kind of keep things a little bit more simple. And so I think over the course of the 3 school weeks that we did, she did one lesson, which would normally take 1.5 to 2 weeks. So she just kind of spread it out a little bit more, and we took more days off of science than we did science, I would say. The only real change that I made for her in the month of December, as far as independent work goes, is in her character study. I had been printing out character study pages for her, which basically I just took the study guide and I made my own version. And the reason that I had been doing that was because I wanted to use it for my next two children. And then I got to thinking about it and I just thought, this is silly. Why am I printing out these things and going through all the time and hassle to type it out, print it out, give it to her, tell her what the assignment is, when I could just hand her the whole study guidebook and she has it all and she can just go through it by herself. So that's what we're doing now. I asked my husband if he thought that we could just order another study guide later on when the other kids need it. And he was like, yeah, of course. Why would you spend all that time doing that? And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I will just order a new one later. So I have my daughter do all of the character study in the study guide, and then she reads this book, Portraits of Integrity, once a week after she's done with the character study for that week, if that makes sense. So basically, in the character study, she has to look up verses and answer some questions, and then there are some application questions as well, and we go through and talk about those afterward. And then once a week, when she reads the story from this, I will go through the questions that are at the end of each story with her, and we'll talk about these. So instead of me reading that to her on our lunch loop like we had been trying to do in the fall, I'm just having her be a little bit more independent and read that on her own and then talk to me about it later. And that works pretty well. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the curriculum for my 5th grade daughter. For my 3-year-old preschool son, we wrapped up the train lesson that we had been doing for our transportation unit from Purely Preschool. And I did a video recently or two about kind of how preschool's going and the books that I am using for the next lesson, which is boats, which I still have all of the books. I got them really early so that I knew we would have them ready to go for January when we started that lesson. So we will actually be starting the boat lesson in January, and we wrapped up the train lesson in December, and he really enjoyed that. I got tons of extra books that the program didn't necessarily recommend. I got the recommended books that it had, but then also a bunch of other train books, and so that was really fun to go through with him. Other than the transportation unit, we are just working on just simple things around the house, counting things as they come up in a book, or how many spoons do we need to set the table, things like that. And so he is just getting a little bit of math practice in, just in very simple, everyday types of ways. So that is kind of it for my 5th grade daughter and my preschool son. Now I would like to share with you a little bit about what I'm going to be reading in the month of January. If you saw my 2025 goals video last week or so, I shared that one of my goals this year is to read 25 books in the year. And I started reading a little bit more this last fall and have been trying to make sure that I make time for that every day. If you are familiar with Charlotte Mason and mother culture, you might read books that talk about having a few different types of books that you're reading at one time. So my plan is to read one fiction book per month alongside a nonfiction or kind of educational philosophy type of book. So in December, I read Little House in the Big Woods, and I really enjoyed this book. Obviously, it was a pretty simple read, but that was nice to be able to just read a little bit in the evenings or during quiet time in the afternoon. And so I'm definitely trying to keep that habit going. And in the month of January, I'm going to read Farmer Boy, the next one in the series. So my plan currently is to read one of these books per month. If I finish it early, I'll just probably pick up the next one. But then once I finish the Little House series, I would like to start reading the Chronicles of Narnia next. If you have any recommendations on which order to read those books in, let me know, because I always hear conflicting opinions on if you should read them in the order that he wrote them, or if you should read them in the order that they are chronologically. So if you have an opinion on that, please let me know down in the comments, because I'm still a little confused on what I'm supposed to do to read those books. So the next type of book that I would like to read is kind of educational philosophy. And this is something that I've been kind of working on over the last few years. But this year, I've developed more of an interest specifically in reading Charlotte Mason's volumes, and then just about her philosophy in general. So I started in December reading this book, Modern Miss Mason by Leah Bowden. And this book for me is a little bit harder to get into. The chapters are fairly long, and I don't know. I thought about just returning it to the library, but then I'm thinking, no, I really just need to finish a book. So I am going to start reading this in January again, and then hopefully finish it before the end of the month. But then I'm going to finally start reading one of Charlotte Mason's volumes. Now, this is actually volume 6, The Philosophy of Education. But I have been listening to Autumn Kern at The Commonplace, and she recommended this book first, and then I think Home Education, which is book 1, volume 1. Those were the two that she recommended to start with. So I decided to get this one because it talks a little bit more about students that are a little bit older, where the other one starts more with students that are younger. And since I have both a fifth grader and little kids, I figured that this one might be more helpful to me now, and then I can always go back and read the Home Education Volume 1 after this one. So she also recommends reading the volume that you're working on 3 times before you start another volume. So I thought that was really interesting. I just listened to her podcast recently, and she had that recommendation. So I'm going to give that a try. I know that these are harder to read because they are in Old English, and that will definitely be a challenge for me. So I will probably read this literally like a paragraph at a time, and then think about that for a little while. So this prep might take me all year. I don't know, but we will see how it goes. And hopefully I can read some other books, maybe a little bit more like this one, kind of alongside of it, so that I'm still reading more books, so I can actually get to my 25 books in 2025 goal. But anyway, so those are the things that I'm reading for January and what I finished reading in December. So let me know down in the comments what you are reading right now. If you don't have anything specific that you would really like to tell me about, then go ahead and leave me an emoji that has to do with your very favorite hobby. I always think it's fun to hear what other people enjoy doing at this time of year. Some people live in places that are still warm right now, and some people are in the midst of a really cold winter. So I would like to know what you enjoy doing in the winter wherever you live. I hope it was helpful for you today to hear kind of how our homeschool and activities went in the month of December. I make update videos every month about how our homeschool is going. So I have a full playlist, and I will link that down below in the description box for you if you're interested in seeing some of our other monthly updates. Here on my channel, I like to share about all things homeschool mom life related. So things like organization and planning, curriculum and reviews, and even cleaning my house. So if that sounds interesting to you, I hope that you will hit the subscribe button down below and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today at our homeschool table, and we'll see you next time.